Okay, so I'm here today with Sarah Heywood. Sarah is a relatively new agent. She's really only been practicing for less than 5 months. And here's what's great about Sarah is, I'm going to talk about her performance here in just a moment, but what's great about Sarah is her hunger to grow, her hunger to learn, and her innate desire to really lead the way with her clients in delivering a great experience. And so that's why I decided, hey, it might be beneficial to just actually have a chat with Sarah and just talk about what is she doing that is leading to the success that she's experiencing. And I'll tell you what I mean by success. Sarah's got, in less than 5 months, right, 5 transactions closed, and she currently has 4 transactions pending. Now, let me put this into a little bit of perspective. In our industry, in the real estate industry, first-year agents who are within their first year of getting into real estate, on average do 3 transactions. That's according to the National Association of Realtors. Now, another sobering statistic is that 67% fail within their first year. They get out of the business, right? It's tougher than they imagined, wasn't quite what they expected, and they're out of the business. 67%, okay? Of those that remain, the average in our industry has been 3 transactions. However, Sarah, I did a little bit of research, and a lot of bit of research. I got pretty geeked out on this. What I discovered is that agents in the markets that we serve, right, like our company is in Idaho and Washington, agents who are in their first year, right, I tracked how many transactions on average they closed, the ones that made it through to their second year. You ready for this? 1.8. So you, Sarah, are an anomaly within our industry. Right now, whereas in the markets that we serve, agents on average in their first year are closing 1.8 transactions, you have 5 closed. In fact, a couple of them are closing today. Is that right?
Yep.
So I appreciate you being
3.
here. Appreciate 3 of them closing today. Appreciate you being here in spite of what's going to be a busy day. But so on average, agents are closing 1.8 transactions in their first year. You, on the other hand, 5 closed and you've got another 4 pending. That is remarkable. And I wanted to take a few minutes today and just ask you, what are you doing, right? What do you feel like you're doing that's leading to these kinds of results and this kind of success? But I'll start off, Sarah, by asking you the question, tell me a little bit about how your life has changed since you got into real estate, right? In other words, our conditioning in the United States, our culture in high school, in college, really our education system is designed to teach us how to be decent employees, right? There's not a lot of real practical hands-on training that teaches or prepares people for how to be an entrepreneur, which, by the way, if you're getting into real estate, that's what you are. You're an entrepreneur, right? Charting your own destiny. But our education system isn't designed to teach us how to be entrepreneurs. So I'm really curious, how has your life changed since you became an entrepreneur, since you got into real estate?
My life has changed immensely since I got into real estate, and I really did go from having an employee mindset, and I was a really, really good employee as well, to completely switching it up to having that entrepreneurial mindset. I had to examine kind of how I operated day to day and what I was doing that was contributing to my business or not contributing to my business once I got into real estate. So just even having that kind of accountability for myself was a really, really big thing that changed my life, quite honestly, in multiple ways, not just in my career, but in my personal life too. So it's just been a huge change for me, especially in terms of getting up every morning and being motivated to go and work for myself. That is not an easy task to kind of do every single day. And some days, you feel like, oh, I just want to sit at home. But in a career like real estate, it is hard work. And I think a lot of people are drawn to it because of the flexibility and because it seems like, oh, you can have all this free time, you get to make your own schedule. But in reality, you get to make your own schedule, but you better have at least an 8-hour day in there, especially starting out. Otherwise, you don't get to reap the benefits that you can. And I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to get that bit of, that reward for all the hard work, which is super exciting and just motivates me to go even further.
So tell me this. Tell me how did you deal with? It takes some time. I always liken it to a train, right? It takes 360 gallons of fuel to get that train moving the first mile. But once the momentum is there, a train can go literally 300 miles on a single gallon of fuel, right? But for young entrepreneurs, real estate agents, that first 2 or 3 months can be excruciating because you're putting in a lot of effort, but you're not yet quite seeing the rewards. And that's why I attribute it to, the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur. As an employee, you've got that motivation factor called, I got to be work at such and such time to clock in, right? But you also know that the work that you do for that day, you're going to collect a paycheck within a week or 2 weeks. So tell me a little bit about, like, how do you deal with the fact that you're, early in your career, your first few months, you're putting in such massive effort, and, it takes a couple, 3 months before you start seeing results. Tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
I'm not gonna lie, it does feel disheartening when you first start out and you do put in sometimes like 12, 13-hour days working to get to your end goal of, finding clients that you get to work with and serve. And so it can be a little disheartening at first, but just having the motivation to keep going and knowing that it does take time to build up your career. It takes an immense amount of time and effort that you have to put into it. And so I think one of the hardest parts is just keeping yourself going and reminding yourself, like, yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm getting there. I'm almost there. And then suddenly, like, I had one transaction that I was really writing and praying for. And as soon as I closed that transaction, all these other opportunities that I had been working on for the past couple of months came to fruition and popped up. And, suddenly I'm sitting here with 3 closings in one day. And yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you. Well, and it's just keeping yourself going and not giving up, because it can definitely feel like you're being put through the ringer, and preparing yourself for that mentally as well is super important, which is something I definitely worked on.
I remember having a coaching interaction with you, and it's one of my favorite interactions that I get to have, particularly with new agents who have some work ethic, who really want to see this go. And that's important to emphasize, because I'll tell you, I see a lot of real estate agents that get into the business and they think that it's going to be easier than it is. And they're not fully prepared for, if you're going to start a business, you have to be 100% committed. You have to be laser focused. You've got to be able to put in whatever amount of time, work, and effort that it takes to get that career going. And so this conversation that I'm gonna sort of repeat that you and I had, is one of my favorite conversations, because you were there, you were willing to work, you were willing to learn, you were willing to grow. Oh, it's just so, look, I'm a performance coach, right? And the most delicious thing is to actually work with someone who's willing to put in the work. And the conversation that we had is, I'll never forget it. I said, Sarah, you've got everything going for you. You're bright, you're articulate, you're a go-getter, you work hard, you care about your clients, and you're learning and you're growing, right? Now you have to deploy something that most entrepreneurs suck at, and that is patience, right? The results will come. You just have to continually be willing to double down on your efforts and just stay consistent and keep going and keep going. So really great that you share that. I'd like to know, and I think most agents would like to know. Look, I know that your goal is 15 transactions this year. You are certainly on pace to meet that goal, the rate that you're going, the momentum that you're building. Right, literally the only thing that'll take you to get there is for you to just continue consistently doing what you're doing. Right, which means you're probably going to have to deal with a little bit of burnout. You're going to have to manage your burnout, right? You're going to have to figure out ways. And by the way, this is a good thing, right? If I were to go to the gym and I wanted to build, massive biceps, what that literally is doing is I'm going to the gym to tear down or break down that muscle so that it rebuilds, and it rebuilds larger, and it rebuilds with greater capacity, right? So that's what you're doing in your career right now, is you are literally expanding and pushing out the bandwidth of what you're able to accomplish within a given time, right? So you are on track to meet your goals. I see it in what you're doing. We're so proud of the effort that you're putting in and the experience that you deliver to your clients. But I'd like to hear from you. What do you attribute the success you've experienced so far and the trajectory that you're on? What do you most attribute your rapid success to, if you could break it down?
Quite honestly, I attribute my success to my ability to adapt and my ability to grow. I really, coming into the real estate industry, I realized I was going to have to change a lot of habits that I had. Not only like personal habits, little things that you do, but also like how I spend my time consuming media, how I, operate in the morning. Finding a morning routine was something that was really, really big for me because without a morning routine, like you're just kind of going through the day all willy-nilly or all over the place. But when you get up in the morning and you set an intention for yourself, that really kind of changed my mindset. So just being open to learning and growing and trying new things was really, really big for me. As well as joining Haven, the coaching that was immediately available, being able to reach out to anyone on the team member and find a mentor or find, an answer to a question that I had and know that I can get multiple answers and compare them to each other and get feedback from everyone and really start a conversation. That was huge. That really contributed to my growth. And it contributes to the growth of everyone around you as well. When you're able to ask questions and start a conversation about, whether it's dealing with client relationships or it's dealing with an actual contract, the amount of learning that you can soak up and you can have at a group like Haven is just insane. And not only that, but I mean, like you put on your master courses, which that was a really big deal for me because that's where I really learned to hold myself accountable throughout my day. We have accountability partners, people we talk to and we set an intention with in the morning. And that's how we go throughout our day. And the next day we say, hey, I got it done or I didn't get it done. This is how I feel about it. So just holding yourself accountable was something that I had not really done in the past. And going into that,
Was it awkward at first? How did you feel about it when, because in that mastery course that you alluded to, and I remember
mhm,
you were only a few weeks into real estate, and you were like, oh my gosh, should I be doing a mastery course on
yeah.
marketing and branding? And my answer was absolutely, right? And you did really, really well in the course. I'm really proud of you. But people get into real estate or people become an entrepreneur, and many of them do it because they don't want to be accountable to somebody else. They want to make their own schedule, chart their own way.
Yeah.
But it can often be a double-edged sword if you don't learn the characteristics, the mechanism to keep yourself on track and keep yourself motivated, right? It literally is, you've got to become self-motivated. So I find that a lot of people, as they start, like specifically when we do our elite coaching or our mastery coaching, our mastery classes, there are some that are really reticent to experiencing that kind of vulnerability, that kind of authenticity of being accountable to their peers, right? Because you set up, you work in accountability groups, and you're sharing with each other like what your goals are and what your daily activities need to be in order to meet those measures, to meet those goals. And then you're sharing with each other the next day, like, how did you do? And being real,
Yeah.
like really laser intensity on what got in the way, right? What got in the way? And are you okay with that? Like, what do you intend to do today? What was that initially like for you?
Initially, it was hard, and it was hard to be honest about my goals and about, when I didn't accomplish those goals or didn't hold myself accountable. It was hard to go back to my partner and say, like, look, I didn't get it done, and have someone with love tell you, why? Why didn't you do this? And it's not that they were disappointed themselves, but they really kind of brought out my own disappointment in me for not being able to hold myself accountable. And that really changed my mindset on how I even talk to myself, like in my own head, my own thoughts was, instead of going about and saying, like, oh, I didn't get this done, this is awful, just coming up with excuses, it really showed me, well, how in turn can I make it happen? How can I, instead of feeling uncomfortable or feeling disappointed in myself, how can I turn around and turn that feeling into something that's good? So at first, it was definitely a little awkward or
Sure.
intimidating, but once I got into it, I really got into it and I really enjoyed like having someone that would listen to what I wanted to do for the day, my goals I wanted to accomplish, and tell me, like, you can do it, and let's hear you do it tomorrow,
Yeah.
basically. It was lovely.
It really is a delicious experience. And,
Yeah.
look, it's doing even more than what I taught in that course. It's literally the act of sharing with someone, with one of your peers, like what your objectives are and being accountable for it. Hey, here's what I did, and here's what I didn't do, right?
Yep.
But talking about, like openly talking about and sharing with a peer what your objectives are, what your goals are, what your commitments are, creates pathways in your subconscious. And your subconscious actually starts to look for, how do I make this happen? Clearly, this is important to Sarah. So your subconscious goes, by the way, your subconscious is the most powerful thing in the universe, right? So your subconscious looks for, how do I make that happen? So it really brings about an amount of clarity and perspective. It really helps in your decision making. And so I'm really proud that you participated at the level that you did, and like the results speak for themselves, right? But I want to flip the script and also ask you, what was it like to be on the other end, right? Here you are. I mean, you were an agent of like less than 2 months of experience, right? What was it like, because your partners changed throughout the program, right? So what was it like being an accountability partner and coaching someone else, even though that person you may have been coaching may have had 10 times more experience than you? What was that feeling like? What was that experience like?
At first, that was what was awkward. I didn't mind sharing my, goals and stuff with other people, but having to hold someone else accountable, especially someone who, I had a top agent who was like a super high producing, agent in Spokane as one of my accountability partners. And holding her accountable for her day it was hard at first, but
Sure.
it actually got a lot easier. And I found that I really, really started to enjoy it because I was doing a service for her. I was being an advocate for
Yes.
her own self when she might not have been able to do that for herself. So, and when she was able to accomplish, whoever my accountability partner was, whenever they were able to accomplish their goals that they had set the previous day, like that was an amazing feeling for me, because it's like, I'm so proud of you that you accomplished that and you got it done. And then when they didn't, it's having a real and honest conversation from a point of love and understanding of, okay, well, why didn't you do it? What
Right.
can you work on to make it happen next time? And, how can we fix this? And how can we move forward? So I actually found that I really deeply, deeply enjoyed being able to be an advocate for someone like that, and being of service to them in a way where it can be uncomfortable, and it's not necessarily everyone's favorite thing to tell someone else
Sure.
they failed at their goal, but
Right.
being able to lift them back up in that was super rewarding.
That's outstanding. I always talk about that accountability is the highest and greatest form of love. Look, you're not at a point where you're raising children, but a lot of people can identify that with your children. Sometimes not sometimes, like as a parent, our obligation is to set a standard to teach our children principles and then hold them accountable to those standards, to those principles, because of the way that those habits that they then develop serve them throughout the rest of their lives, right? So really is, you know, in teaching you guys how to be accountability partners and coaches for each other is such a massive contribution to our organization, because you guys are literally learning how to deliver the highest form of love and respect and benefiting each other, and it feels good. I know, because of the fact that I look at all of our intake forms when you joined our firm. One of the assessments that you do is the 6 psychological human needs assessment, right? And one of yours is like your high off the charts contribution, right? So you have an innate desire to contribute to the people that matter to you in your life. And look, that's the great thing about whatever side that you're on of those accountability conversations, whether you're receiving it or whether you're delivering it, right? It's contribution. One of your other characteristics that were really high for you was growth. Like you have an internal drive to grow and to learn. And I strongly feel that that's been a huge contributing factor to your continued success. So let me kind of switch gears a little bit and just ask you, what have you learned? What is it that makes sellers or buyers feel comfortable with you and that sets you apart with or from other agents? Because the market is so challenging right now. You know, there's less than 10 days of inventory, and many of your closings have been buyers. So here you are, brand new agent, right? You're working with people that you don't necessarily know, right? That have come in through our lead generation platforms. And you're having to quickly build a relationship of trust and rapport very, very quickly, because this is a swift moving market. In other words, you know, people have got to be ready and willing and able to make an offer quickly and escalate all of those things. And it puts an enormous responsibility on your shoulders, which, by the way, you're handling with grace and poise. But what do you feel like you do specifically that makes buyers or sellers feel comfortable with you, that differentiates you from other agents?
I think one of the biggest things for me is being open and honest with my clients. I feel like, you know, there's a couple careers that get a bad rap. It's like car salesmen, lawyers, and real estate agents. We all kind of fall into that category of like, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, you know, to get your business. And so ultimately, when I got into this industry, I decided that I want to come from a place of honesty with my clients. You know, you hear over and over again, fake it till you make it. And that works to a degree until you're faking it to the point where you can't see your pathway correct to make it. So it's genuinely even small things where it's like, if I have a client who asks me a question and I don't necessarily know the answer right off the top of my head, I'm going to be honest with them about it. I'm not going to come up with something that I'm later down the line going to have to say, oh, you know, I was mistaken. Instead, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to say, hey, you know, I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head, but I can find out for you and I will let you know as soon as possible. And that in turn makes them trust me even more, because they're able to see like, oh, this is a real human being who wants to make sure the information I have is right. They're not just trying to BS me and, you know, just trying to, you know, essentially close a transaction. And I think looking at it from a standpoint of being an advocate for my clients and not necessarily looking at my clients as, oh, this is a transaction that's happening, but rather this is a real life human with a family and friends and, you know, a job that they're worried about making one of the biggest changes that they can in their life through the, you know, the biggest transaction. Most Americans hold most of their value economically in their homes. So buying and selling a house is a really big deal for most people, especially when you come to first time buyers. Like that's an emotional journey. So just being an advocate for my clients and being open with them is one of the biggest things I think I can do for them. And one of the reasons I think my clients do really appreciate the services that I can provide to them. I know I prefer honesty over everything else. So that's what I want to give forth to people. And honestly, just being a support system for them. I've had clients who've had, you know, emotional ups and downs through buying, and it can get really, really stressful. Everyone is purchasing or selling for different reasons. So being able to adapt to your client and being able to come from a place of compassion, no matter where they are at their life, is really, really valuable, and they can feel it. They can feel the genuine honesty and the genuine care that you have for them, and that'll make them return clients.
Which, by the way, you hit it on the head. That can't be faked.
Yeah.
You either have to have it. You know, there's a very few that can develop it. So there's very few. You either have it or you don't. And you know, I want to highlight something that you mentioned about, you know, fake it till you make it only works to a certain point, right? And you're absolutely correct. However, I would add that you've done something that's extraordinarily brilliant. I remember early on in the mastery course, I don't know if you'll remember this, you sent me a video.
Oh,
and I was really touched by the video. I'm contemplating whether or not to share it in this, a clip of it in this interview. But boy, you were just really authentic and really vulnerable. And you shared that which is normal, by the way. Early in your career, you were dealing with a lot of anxiety. And you know, so honored that you and I have the relationship such that you can trust me with that kind of thing. It really is an honor to be able to serve someone like you at that capacity. But in that mastery course, you really learn how to like reset yourself emotionally, how to, and there's an element of fake it till you make it, right? Like you've got to get the momentum going, right? You're not always, as an entrepreneur, you're not always going to wake up feeling like, yay, let's charge through my day, right? You're just not always going to feel like that. But I really want to honor and acknowledge you for the fact that you took on the coaching and the training, which literally is a daily conditioning of how to reset your mindset for optimal performance, right? And look, lots of people go to this kind of training, lots of people hear this kind of training, but it's very few who, like you, take it on as a daily practice, and your results speak for themselves, right? So there's definitely an element of fake it till you make it that can be very, very useful in terms of resetting your emotional state, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that you've done, in addition to just being honest, if you know the answer to the question, you deliver it. If you don't, you're willing to be honest and authentic and say, hey, let me get back to you. I'm going to answer to that immediately, right? But the other thing that I've observed about you is that you literally attend nearly every single training that we have and we make available, not only at Haven, but in outside sources as well, right? Like, so when Cambria is doing the specific training on what the addendums to the contract mean and how to effectively use them and how to negotiate terms and how to advocate for your client, like you are front row center almost always at all of those trainings. You just literally are so dedicated to learning and honing your craft to the benefit of your clients. And you mentioned a third thing that I really want to make sure to point out, and that is you take on the fiduciary responsibility of taking care of your clients. And that is such an important aspect. True success really comes as a result of when you put your clients' interests and their outcomes, when you put all of your energy and your focus into that. It's amazing how your career grows because your client feels it, they experience it, and they know it to be real and they know it to be authentic. And right now in our industry, everybody's concerned about big tech taking over the industry, but there are enough people, and I keep saying this from my, with my bullhorn as loud and as often as I can, there are enough consumers in our industry, the real estate industry, that really do want and appreciate someone like you who genuinely cares, who is a professional, and who is seeking to advocate their best interests, right? There will always be a market for that. So congratulations, because like right early in your career, you are laying out the groundwork, the foundation for a really great and sustainable career. And I just really, I can't say it enough. I just really acknowledge you for that. So let me ask you this. Being an entrepreneur, that your day-to-day is different than what an employees might be. Tell me a little bit about what does your average day look like?
I don't think I have an average day. In this industry, you don't, and you shouldn't expect it. I start out my day really by having a morning ritual. That's super, super important to me. And that's really the only average thing I get to have is kind of that everyday conditioning myself and preparing myself for the day. And the days where I don't do that, I notice it like big time. And I'm sure people around me notice it. So starting out a good average day for me would be mentally preparing myself for the day. And then from there, just having flexibility is key. But some of the really important things that I make sure to do every day is I make sure to check the local MLS for new listings, things that have come back on the market, all of that. When dealing with my clients' transactions, I reach out to the closers, I reach out to the title companies, to the lenders, and make sure we're on track for everything. And then I go back to my clients and I let them know, hey, here's a little update for you. This is what we're doing today. Next week, we're going to have to deal with this. Everyone's in communication with each other. So I really pride myself on being able to kind of bring all parties together and get the information to my client before they even ask me for it, so that they feel like they're being taken care of and that they don't have to go and seek that out. And then on top of that, I mean, trying to do as many showings as possible and serve as many clients as I can and just get out there to serve people is one of the big things that I try to do throughout my day. And some days, you'll have nothing in that aspect. And then other days, your day will be completely full of it. So There's really not an average day, but ultimately what it boils down to is just having that flexibility to, on a, the drop of a dime, be able to say, oh, okay, I need to switch my gears and I need to go do this because I have a client that suddenly came up that wants to go see a listing. And so I need to be able to serve them and I need to be able to be flexible in that sense. So, and usually by the end of the day, I mean, I like to think of real estate as you're constantly working and you get the moments of having time off. So the moments where I don't actually, have to do any work, I really cherish, and I get to spend time with my friends and my family and, just enjoy those little moments, even if it's just having a lunch together. That's super important for me. But usually I like to work until pretty much I go to bed, constantly checking the MLS, seeing what else I can learn essentially and how I can continue to grow. So that's kind of an average day.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned something about your morning ritual, and tell me a little bit about that. I mean, I know what it is because I teach it, but for our viewers, like tell us a little bit of what's the structure of that? What do you do?
So I try to get up pretty early. Usually I try to get up around 6 and I'll start off the morning with like some nice warm water. I sit down and I like to think. And meditating is a really big part of that, which I learned from you through the mastery course, where you're sitting down and you're setting an intention for your day, but you're also showing gratitude for your opportunities that you have in the future, but also all the opportunities you've had in the past. Even if it's something that seemed like it was negative that had happened to you, I've really focused on trying to find a silver lining in it. And, like Tony Robbins says, like, is this happening to you or is this happening for you? That was a really, really like mind altering concept to me when I first heard it. Because now I can sit down and I can be grateful for things that have happened to me that in the past I've not been so grateful for.
Sure.
And so starting your morning off with like that gratitude, it just energizes me. It kickstarts me. And then from there, after I do my meditations, sometimes I'll journal, sometimes I don't have time necessarily, but being able to journal at least once throughout the day is really, really helpful as well. Just to, like you mentioned before, like I dealt with a lot of anxiety starting out in this career. And one of the biggest things that helped me was just getting my thoughts down on paper, finding the silver lining in everything that was happening, whether it was good, whether it was bad, just being able to look at it objectively and say, okay, how can I turn this into something good? And it energizes you. And then from there, I like to do some exercise in the morning to kind of start my day. That goes back to, dealing with anxiety, like being able to kind of get your body moving and flowing really helps me in that aspect. And once I get through that, my day is great.
Well, look, and I, every now and then I encounter some resistance to the idea of sitting down and really intentionally thinking about what you're grateful for. Even journaling it. What you want to do is you want to create it for yourself, wherein you're reliving the moment, right? Again, going back to that analogy of building a muscle, right? Like you've got to spend time. You've got to do it consistently. You've got to do it daily, right? If you want to get results. And so, with this conditioning every morning that you do, with thinking about like, the things that you can be grateful for giving yourself the space and the time to relive those moments that you can be grateful for, that actually is conditioning yourself, whereby when you face moments of stress or you face moments of uncertainty, you're able to optimally see the best outcome or the best way to achieve that silver lining that you're talking about, right? In the absence of conditioning yourself daily for all the things that you can be grateful for, really spending time thinking about what are your objectives in life, what are the outcomes that you're looking to create in the next year, right? By spending time doing that, you're literally training your brain and you're training your physiology, your emotions, your emotional state. You're training it for optimal performance. No different than when you segue into conditioning your body, right? Doing a workout routine. You're conditioning your body for best performance. Look, real estate and really being an entrepreneur and doing a startup in any kind of industry is incredibly, it's emotionally, it's physically, it's mentally, it's financially taxing. And so I really acknowledge you for like doing what it takes, like being proactive to do what it takes to ensure that you show up for yourself, for your family, and for your clients in the absolute peak physical, mental, and emotional condition, right? And that only serves to allow you to expand your ability to serve others, right? So it just shows in your mindset, your willingness to grow, your coachability, which I just absolutely adore, and your willingness to work, your willingness to put these things into practice and actually implement it into your day-to-day life. And it sounds like not just with your career, but like your life in general, your relationships in general, you're really starting to see the payout for that. Really starting to see the reward.
Yeah. And I will say, real quick, just in terms of like doing like a morning meditation, a lot of people are resistant to that idea.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, I got to sit down for 10 minutes and breathe and think. And I, I was not super resistant at first because I'm familiar with the concept, but just doing it daily really opened my eyes up to how beneficial it is and how important it is to start your morning with those intentions, because it's so much more than just setting up your day for your clients. It is completely all like life altering when dealing with relationships with people you love and your friends. You'll see people from a different perspective, and it's a perspective of love and gratitude, even for things that you don't necessarily like you're able to approach each situation from a point of love rather than from a point of being like frustrated, or angry. And even if there is anger and frustration behind it, I've found that conditioning myself in that way, just it opens me up to be able to let me express how I'm feeling through that point of love and through being just honest and open and loving, essentially. It's like I love meditating. I'm so grateful that you kind of got me into that. So thank you.
Well, listen, kudos to you, right? Because you're actually taking what you're learning and implementing it. And you mentioned something that I just quickly want to highlight. You mentioned that it really helps in your interactions with friends and family. Here's the thing that we've got to understand, right? As entrepreneurs, less than 9% of the U.S. population are entrepreneurs and your business owners, real estate professionals, whatever you want to call it, like we are, right? Less than 9% of the population. Most people place a higher value internally on security and comfort, right? So, I'm always looking for talent, and I meet talented people, everywhere I go. And, at times where I'll have conversations like, oh my gosh, the service that you deliver is so extraordinary. Have you ever thought about real estate, right? The uncertainty of not having a steady every 2 weeks paycheck is so frightening and so fearful for most people that even though they've got the talent, they can definitely succeed at something like that. We've created our brokerage where we are like basically a haven for people who want to grow and achieve success in life and expand their relationships and deepen the breadth and width of their relationships and their experience of life. Like we created a haven for that, right? And even still, most people are like very reticent to put themselves out there and experience a life like that, where literally you're truly living by the result of what you produce, period, right? So it's very daunting for most people. So I said all of that to say, when you're in your seat, when you're in your shoes, right, you're going to experience from family members, well-intentioned, right, well-intentioned family members, friends, associates, peers even that are outside the industry, like, what are you doing? Like, oh my gosh, you just seem to be working so hard, right? And so, the conditioning that you're doing and the meditating that you're doing and preparing yourself optimally, both emotionally and physically and mentally, really allows for you to receive that with love and grace and gratitude and see it from the perspective of, look, from their shoes, what I'm doing is very, very risky and very, very abnormal, right? We live in a society that's me first, right? My interests first. And what you're doing with respect to your real estate career is you are absolutely putting your clients' needs first. You are absolutely there to serve others. And it stands in stark contrast to how most people, via our conditioning and our culture and our education system, have been brought up. So it's so heartwarming to hear that early in your entrepreneurial career, you're already learning how to interact with that and to do it with grace and poise and gratitude. And it's really heartwarming. I really acknowledge you for that. So let me ask you this. Given everything that you've learned and experienced up till now, what advice would you give yourself at the start of this journey?
I really thought I was well prepared when I came into this, but I would prepare myself even further. I mean, I knew coming into the real estate industry that it could be like 6 months before I even get my first transaction under my belt. I was not prepared for just how much work I was going to have to put into it. I mean, I knew to a certain degree, but not only just work in towards my career, but work on myself because I was not able to fully serve my clients, being in a bad mental state or feeling anxious or feeling, depressed or any of that stuff. So just preparing myself with the tools and making sure to have a proper support system set up would be one of the biggest things I would go back and change. And that even just goes back to like starting out with Haven. I mean, there were so many opportunities for me to partner up with top producing agents and find a mentor and all of that. And I didn't take full advantage of those opportunities. And I knew that if I had taken advantage, I wouldn't have been sitting, for like a month or so, just feeling so worried that I'm never going to, succeed in this career.
Sure.
So that's one of the big things, but also just preparing myself for financially how draining it can feel when you do not have any income coming in. I mean, it took me, 3 or 4 months before I finally had a closing. So I was lucky enough to have a support system where I prepared myself a little bit financially, but not fully. And I was lucky enough that I had a support system behind me who could help me out with that. But if you're not prepared financially to go into a career like this and to not make any money for at least 6 months, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to have to go back to being an employee to pay your bills, essentially. So just the preparation is the biggest thing going into a career like this. And knowing that there are going to be huge hurdles coming up that you'll have to get over is super important. And I definitely was in the mindset of like, oh, I'm going to jump in. It's going to be great. I'm going to close a transaction in the first 2 months.
Yeah.
And that just didn't happen. So I didn't set myself up mentally for that. And that was a big misstep. I got through it, of course, but yeah, having that mental preparation and financial preparation, physical preparation to know that you're going to be working 12-hour days sometimes even longer.
Sure.
You got to be ready for it.
I recall a conversation that you and I had, and you don't know that I'm going to say this, but I'm going to share it anyways because I really think that it can benefit a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the frustration early on. I saw the frustration. And you and I had such a great conversation. Again, what I just so adore your authenticity, your vulnerability, your willingness, and your hunger to be coached and improve yourself, and all of those things. It makes it like such a delight to serve you, right? To guide you towards the success that you have within you. It's just such a joy. I just want to express that, and that's the reason I share some of the conversations that we have. But the conversation we had, you were really frustrated, right? And you really did. You shared that, well, you just really thought that this journey would happen a little faster. We had the conversation about patience. But you mentioned something that you're so grateful for your significant other, for your partner. You were so grateful for his understanding and his support and him literally being a cheerleader and believing in you. And you were just so, you were moved when you were sharing that with me. And my advice to you at that point, my coaching to you was, gosh, Sarah, make sure that you are continually expressing that gratitude, to your fiance. Make sure that you are recognizing and acknowledging the fact that he's partnering with you in growing your career. And of course, like every other coaching or mentoring that you've received, you just really take that on and truly, I think that people who are getting into real estate really need to understand and acknowledge and build, if need be, that support structure at home, because it is incredibly challenging. I mean, the massive tidal wave of odds are against you succeeding in this industry, right? And so you've got to line to succeed, to build a sustainable career. You've got to literally line up every single thing in your favor, right, in order to have a shot at succeeding. And man, I just really want to acknowledge you, because like you're after it. You take action, right? You do the daily things that help put you in a position for optimal performance, and the performance is showing up for you like clockwork. So I'm really proud of you. I'm humbled and honored to be able to serve, you and agents like you. It's just such a joy to see you. Look, all I'm guiding you towards is unraveling what we as human beings tend to put in the way of achieving success. And look, success, not just in your real estate career. The real estate career is a great vehicle. Like the things that you have to learn and have to master in the career called real estate are just such great characteristics and habits that play out and pan out in other aspects of your life, right? Your relationships, your finances, all of those things. And you have really taken that on, and it's just such an honor to see you grow. Cambria and I are both just really incredibly proud of you. So I'll just finish up with turn it over to you, Sarah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us or with people who might be watching?
Just genuinely how grateful I am for the opportunity to be at a brokerage like Haven. Like you mentioned about the support system, like I was lucky enough to have that in my personal life, and to have, a partner who, when there were days where I was not feeling my best, made sure that I was reminded why I can feel my best, and, why I'm awesome. And it was so great, because not only did I get that in my personal life, but anytime I would come into the office, like I would just have agents telling me, like, hey, this is awesome, you're doing this, or, do you have, if I had questions, they would immediately be answered. Like the culture that Haven has is so unique, I feel like, to the real estate industry, which can seem pretty cutthroat. And I interviewed at other brokerages and, had other options to go to. But ultimately, what led me towards a group like Haven was just the culture of love and the culture of growth and the culture of wanting to help one another. So just thank you to you and Cambria for setting that up and creating a really just an awesome safe space for people. And if anyone who's interested in getting into the real estate career, I mean, I would just recommend looking at your options and not necessarily going with like the big box, agency, and like looking into these smaller agencies like Haven, where you are really going to get that one-on-one time with not just, you or you and Cambria, but with other top producing agents who can sit you down and say, this is what worked for me. I tried all of this. It didn't work. Here's what led me to success. And you can talk to multiple people about that and get multiple opinions, and they'll help you work through it. And so I'm so just endlessly grateful for the opportunity to be in an environment like this. It's unlike anything else that I've ever been in. And I've, worked for some great companies, but truly working for yourself and then having that support system is just, it's unmatched. There's nothing else that can compare to it.
Well, and I would say to make this, first of all, I'm really honored by your, I don't want to get emotional here, but really honored by your comments. It's why we do what we do. Cambria and I made the decision, very, very tough financial decision several years ago, to pull ourselves out of production, right? Like we don't compete with our agents. We don't work directly with clients. And we wanted to pursue our full-time vision, our dream of helping others realize success within themselves, right? Because when you realize within yourself that you have all of the tools, all the ability to succeed in life, in anything you choose to put your mind to, right? Mm-hmm. When you realize that you have those tools, it's like an awakening. It's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And Cambria and I were just committed that we wanted to do that full time. So we wanted to be we want to be in the kitchen and engaged and really help people realize and see their own full potential. And it's so rewarding, particularly with agents like yourself that want to grow, that want to succeed. You want to serve others at a greater level, and you're totally consistently interested in elevating your ability to serve others. It's just such a privilege and honor. It's such a joy, and I thank you because you're actually one that's willing to take action and like do the steps, even when, right? It was like when you first started video, even when it's uncomfortable, you don't like it, right? You're just so willing to step outside of your comfort zone and do the work. I will say, because there are people that watch these videos that are outside of the real estate industry, and I will say, you touched on several times the importance of the people you surround yourself with. Our culture at Haven that we work so hard to build is a culture of gratitude, right? So we don't have it doesn't exist within our office, this scarcity mindset of, this lead is mine or that client is mine. And when you have a culture of tapping into the joy of serving and helping others, it doesn't just relate just to your clients, but you guys have, and by you guys, I mean like the agents within our offices truly have a culture that's been fostered and encouraged, a culture of looking out for each other and serving each other, right? And so what that parlays to is your clients actually feel looked after and cared for because it's genuine. It's something that you practice throughout the day and in the office and with your family and with this. So it's just serving your client, taking care of your client is just a natural function of whom you've developed yourself to be, right? Mm-hmm. And so for entrepreneurs that I know videographer entrepreneurs, I know entrepreneurs in all kinds of different industries. And it can feel, I remember I had a very dear friend of mine that was a mentor to me say to me, look, if you're in business for yourself, it can be a lonely experience, right? Well, don't allow that to happen. Like, go to immersion events like Tony Robbins, right? Meet other business owners. Cambry and I go to masterminds and functions multiple times a year. Why? Because you want to surround yourself with people who have a desire to serve and help others and grow themselves. Like, you got to surround yourself with people like that because it's uncommon, right? Mm-hmm. Most people in our culture are just managing their lives to the best of their ability, right? And struggling to keep their nose above water at that, given the political climate, the pandemic that we're dealing with economic uncertainty and all of that. Most people are just struggling mentally, emotionally, financially to just keep their nose above water, right? So if you're someone who, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to succeed, you've got to learn from and grow from and collaborate with others who are on that same journey if you're going to sustainably grow. And you highlighted that several times in some of the topics that we've covered. And I just so appreciate and respect the fact that you recognize the value of that at your young age, at this stage of your career, and you're all in. So thank you, Sarah, and agents like you. I passionately believe you are the future of our industry, right? We're in an industry right now where big tech sees an opportunity within our industry and feels that they can replace the agent-client relationship via use of technology. And they will, to a certain degree, right? Like you look at for sale by owners, you look at the iBuyer program, you look at some of those programs, right? Nonetheless, those are a very small percentage of real estate transactions nationally. Consumers over and over again have said what their preference is. They want to work with a true professional who cares about them and who will help guide them through what can be a stressful and emotional process. And you, Sarah, when I say that you represent our industry, you are fanatical about positioning yourself to be able to do that at your very, very best. And so I'm proud of you. It's an honor to call you a Haven agent. But beyond that, you are setting an example for our industry of what it could look like and what it must look like for our industry to continue thriving. So I thank you, I honor you. Thank you for being willing to do this interview. I know that for those who watch, I know that this will add immense value to their journey wherever they're at in their career. So thank you so much for being willing to do this. And I just really appreciate your willingness. I know you've got 3 closings today and a busy day and all of that, but you're willing to take some time and share your experience in an effort to serve others. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And like even, dealing with 3 closings, hecticness all going on, it's the tools that I have learned from being an agent at Haven that have really guided me to realize like I have time in my day to take time to talk about something I'm super passionate about. And I've learned time management and all of that. So like it goes back to like, yeah, thank you. I'm just so grateful and grateful to be talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah.